welcome everyone again. Thanks again for joining us today. As mentioned, today's session is on agri-finance, venture capital, and banks, facts and myths. So we want to get into the nitty-gritty. We invite you to use the Q&A function. Please put your questions in and comments in the Q&A box so we can get into it right after the session. I'm actually excited about this topic because one of the biggest challenges in agriculture is always access to finance. It's usually one of the first things you hear. So for this session, we'll be examining the financial opportunities, the initiatives, how to access agri-finance, what exactly, we hear a lot of projects about the programs, the bank financing. Let's get down into it and see how do we even qualify? How could people access this program? So we'll have a interesting conversation and questions with the panelists. So to address this topic today, we have four eminent persons in the agricultural sector that will discuss the topic and we'll have a panel discussion. One welcome to all our panelists, all our speakers. Welcome. Are you all with me?
Yes.
Yes, we are. Good morning.
So our first speaker is Mr. Olumide Lawson. He's a partner at Cell Capital. He's an agribusiness manager. I'll ask you the question and I'll get introduced to everyone as I ask the question. So Olumide, Cell Capital is one of the few private equity firms in the agricultural sector in Nigeria, actually in Africa. How accessible are these funds? Are they available? What are the requirements to actually access these funds? And what do companies require? I also want us to clarify, are these funds available to farmers or just SMEs or big cooperatives? How do they access these funds? And how are companies looking for external funds such as venture capital, private equity? Can you talk around that area as well?
Thank you very much, Iwande. So my name is Olumide, like you mentioned. And those are very good questions. I'll try to take them in buckets because I think some of them are related. Like you rightly said, so over the last few years, so Sahel Capital invests in agriculture, but that is all we do, you know. I would take a step back just to say a bit about agriculture and what makes it interesting to investors. So I think one beauty of agriculture is invest to make money on one hand, and on the other hand, it's also a sector in which you can actually touch the lives of very, very, very many people. And for this reason, those two reasons actually created two buckets of potential investors in the space. So you have the commercial investors whose focus is space, you know. At the same time, you have other investors that their own focus is really how do I invest such that I can impact the lives of people. So you tend to hear stories about commercial investors and impact investors. So I think for many agricultural businesses, sometimes it's good for you to know some businesses are best targeted at individuals or institutions that aim to want to make money from it. And that is what your story should be. However, you feel that the commercial aspect is not a great, but you think that your business is going to have, and you should also tailor your story to that way. But if not, what will happen is that it's almost like a square peg in a round hole, you know. Now you asked about agriculture, private equity, and Sahel and investing, and who's typically for SMEs, but I would say that it's the higher end of the SME. So private equity is not really structured directly to commercial the way it's structured. The way Sahel is structured, let me put it that way. We aim to invest in companies that do those two things. One, you can make money and we can impact the lives of people. So what we tend to do is to invest in companies that we can see how their businesses link towards financing other smallholder farmers. So assuming we invest in a processor that owns a large processing plant, for instance, we would like before we do that investment, we would like to see how do you how does the smallholder farmers around you benefit from this investment? So at the end of the day, what we aim commercial, those are fairly large businesses that have the ability to actually reach out to and impact the lives of the smallholder farmers. And for that reason, I would like to also mention that I think one of the issues I've seen, and maybe the myth is at the same time, is that many people don't. So if you're a smallholder farmer, and then a venture capitalist, and you have not really started anything, probability that your site to invest is quite slim. Just like if I'm looking for a 1 million or 2 million naira structure for it, perhaps it might be a small, it might be a microfinance bank. So sometimes it helps for you to know the type of institution that is actually structured satisfactorily to meet the type of investment that you need. Some institutions are equity based, some are debt based. So if you know that you don't really want to dilute your equity, that you really want to just have someone to give you a short term loan to meet some short term needs, perhaps it's actually a debt instrument you're looking for. I think in addition to some of these, you have also asked that what do we look for? What do financiers look for in businesses? And I think one big thing that anybody looks for is to know, how do I achieve my goal by making this investment? Either if my goal is to make money or to touch the lives of people, I would like to hear from that business owner. How can you convince me that goal? So I call it business plan. Although I'm always so concerned about the business plan, because when we hear about business plan, you think about one big document that they've got to decision with the owner of the business, understanding where he's going and where he believes that the company can take him to. Because any investor is not just investing in your business as of today, he's also investing in the prospects of where your business can go tomorrow. So how do you tell that story to me for me to understand and believe that truly investing in this business is going to create value for myself and create value for you as well in the process? I think that is key. The second, which many people overlook, is that paying attention to keeping records. So it's one thing to tell me the stories, but one thing, anybody that is going to take you seriously will like to see that truly. Show me those numbers. You claim that you made 100 million revenues last year. How can I see? Who are these your customers? What did they buy? How did they buy? And not only just the financial numbers, profit and loss accounts and co. I would like to see some of your operational numbers as well. What are your mortality rates like? What is the yields on your products or from your farm and things like that. I think some of those things just show seriousness in terms of who one is dealing with and how important that person takes the business. One last part I would mention, which is perhaps the most important of it all, is actually comes to the character of who we're dealing with. Because if you think about it, any investment, particularly agricultural investment, will require quite a bit of time. You get what people call patient. You need patient capital. You know, so you want to. So, in fact, we always joke in my office and link it to like a marriage. So you want to know who you are in bed with, and you want to know who exactly will this person renege on his commitment. Has he been reneging on? Can give my money and believe that he's going to actually do as he said he would. So some of the things that we actually look out for is one, the character of the person's ability to actually keep proper records, audited accounts, and then even commercial, corporate governance. I will take a pause because the list goes quite a bit. But I think those are some of the areas that we typically look out for before we make an investment.
Thank you very much, Olumide. But let's be clear, every business wants to make profit. So I wanted to mention that. But to summarize all that you said, one of the key things is I think a lot of people usually forget about this is keeping track of financial and operational records. because it's one of the major things people think, oh, my business is doing well, but there's no proof to actually show that. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Also character. But the most important thing is that you work with agri businesses that have offtakes with smallholder farmers, which is key. So it's a win-win for everybody. Thank you for
Yes.
that.
Yes. Thank you. Just 1 second, Diwali, just to clarify. So you're absolutely right that every business wants to make profit, but at the end of the day, if you don't make profit, you over time your business is going to fizzle out. So and the point I was trying to make, and I actually proven that in addition to making profit, or rather, let's put it this way: the quantum of the profit that one makes, it can differ. So just like that sometimes commercial banks might charge 30% interest, some might charge 5%, 8% interest. So it varies. And so for impact investors, for instance, while they want to make money, the biggest concern they have is how much you are able to, in addition to make money, how much you are able to touch the lives of people. And it's a real thing that we are seeing more and more of those kind of impact investors. So yes, make money, but two non-financial, non-commercial objectives that people are tending to.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Olumide. Thank you. So it's Mr. Now, our next speaker is Mr. Asan Adeobafemi. He's the head of PM.
Hello, everyone.
Thanks for joining us. So NERSO is known to help mitigate risk in agri-finance, and through its value chain interventions, has set up pilot projects such as demo farms for community engagement. And these demo plots or these demo farms linked to specific cooperatives. And do farmers have to be part of these cooperatives to access these funds? In addition, I want to find out how SMEs involved in value addition can access some of these funds as well.
Well, thank you, Gewandi. Let me say big congratulations to Heart and Capital for promoting initiatives like these. This is a big initiative towards sustainable agriculture in terms of the theme for this conference. I want to say congratulations. It's a good one. To your question, you not demo farm. What NASA does with that, all over Nigeria, so they're found everywhere, but doing small bits of farmland, in the bits that they are doing, and that, of course, does not attract support and funding, and so how do we now make them attract to support and funding? And so NASA, in its wisdom, believe that let's create clusters of farmland. They actually exist in the clusters, but everybody just cuts out piecemeal out of in the clusters. And also, okay, let's put them together to form an agro-geographical cooperative, as opposed to the usual human being kind of cooperative. So it's a cooperative of farmlands wherever they are, to form a minimum size that could be attractive to support and funding, and of course make economic sense. So as a farmer, we believe you have farmland. When you say you're a farmer, you have farmland, you have productive resources, maybe pen, maybe fish pond, and all of those. But on your own, as an individual or as an isolated location, you might not be able to attract support and funding. So why not cooperate with your neighbor and you form into a big size? And of course, that will be meaningful and attractive to support and funding. And of course, it makes a whole lot of economic sense in terms of cost cutting and maximizing your yield, or in terms of production and eventually profit. So that is exactly what NASA has been talking about and preaching. And so it's, as a farmer, wherever you are, once you have a farmland, talk to your neighbor, put it together so there will be no geographical boundary between you and your next door neighbor. And of course, you form a big cluster of minimum 10 hectares and you are good to go to attract funding and support. So that's what NASA is actually doing, called the Agro-Geographical Cooperative, called AGC. You mentioned that how as SMEs, players and in agriculture benefit or from this kind of agro-geographical cooperative of NASA. Of course, you could, as an SME, begin to identify farmland on your own and encourage this formation. And you can approach NASA and say, okay, you have this volume or this size of land that is ready. When I say ready, is brown, is ready to go for cultivation, and it makes it easier. So in this case, we are a facilitator of the agro-geo cooperative, and of course, it's quite easy. You do all the heavy lifting for the farmers that will be in that cluster, and of course, you're ready to get support and finance. Thank you, Yovani.
Thank you. I wanted to ask another question, just to clarify what you meant, what you're saying. So are you saying that do you have to be part of the cooperative, or you can just have your neighbors join, like you form a group of people together to access these funds, or you have to be part of the cooperative?
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, what I've seen actually is that you don't have to be a part of a cooperative, the usual cooperative. If it's a work cooperative, it's a Waju cooperative. Once you have a land as a farmer, you now put that farmland together to now form a cooperative of farmland. So you don't have to be a cooperative, because eventually your farmland is going to be registered as a geographical cooperative this time around. So all you need is to have a land, 1 hectare or less, but you have to cooperate. The land has to cooperate with the other land. All right? Is the land first, then the farmers can come in, because, like, land is always there. It's always there, and is the first source of production factor for agri. And so, once you have farmland, or you have a pen, a poultry pen, a fish pond, you talk to your neighbor, and you cooperate in terms of farmland, geographical farmland or geographical productive resources. I think it's clear enough.
Yes, it is. Thank you for clarifying. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So our next is Mr. Wale Messinuri. He's a regional bank head, Southwest Regional Manager at Fidelity Bank. Mr. Wale, are you with me today?
Yes. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be part of this conference. Thank you very much. I'm here live and direct.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. So as I mentioned earlier, and I'll continue to mention, finance is one of the major challenges, especially for SME in the value chain, people with added value. I feel like this part of this value chain keeps getting ignored. People that are doing the SMEs with little value addition. And in the sector, it seems very difficult to access finance. Is one of the commercial banks shy away from agricultural loans. But from a commercial bank perspective, and Fidelity's SMEs Forum, usually I know you guys use it to promote agriculture. What agri-finance facilities do you currently have available? And what are the requirements needed to access these facilities?
Okay, once again, thank you very much. Before I go into answering the question, I want to share with us the mindset of a lender, because we need to appreciate what an average lender is looking at for. First and foremost, a lender wants to be sure that his investment is safe. So safety is number one. Number two, he also wants to be sure there is good yield, profitability. So if I'm lending to Mr. A or maybe Madam Yewande, I want to be sure my money is safe with her. Number two, is it profitable to me? And they also want to consider other factors like what are value chain opportunities. If I give her loan, will I also be able to give to our friends, to other communities? So those are the things that the lender is considering. So every time you ask an SME or a farmer, he will say his biggest problem is financing. There is no money. Okay, for Fidelity, our financing options are in two phases. First and foremost, we have commercial loans that we give to farmers, and then we also have one that is a guaranteed form of finance that is more of an intervention funds from CBN. Now, I will take it from the rear, from the intervention side. Now, from the intervention side, all that the bank does is the bank provides a guarantee, and there's a non-lending facility to the customer or to the farmer. And now we have many of them, and I'm sure some of us were familiar with them. There's the commercial agri-credit scheme. And today, Fidelity, out of the entire sum that has been disbursed by CBN, we have about 23% of it that was done through Fidelity Bank. So nationwide. So if you look at it, out of more than 25 banks, that is very significant for us as a bank. So we have commercial agri-credit scheme. Then we also have the Real Sector Support Fund, and is also applicable to agri-businesses. So that is also available, and we're also doing that. We're very strong in that. Then we also have Paddy Aggregation Scheme. It's also a CBN intervention fund, and we have a lot of our customers in the area of rice, both in terms of the aggregation of paddy and processing of paddy into rice. I just don't want to start mentioning, we have a lot of customers that were funded in the country that are doing very well, particularly in rice processing and also in production. Then we also have accelerated agricultural development program for government. We have government that have benefited from these schemes. Then we also have micro, small, medium financing from CBN working with the commercial bank. So from the intervention fund perspective, we have a lot of funds available for farmers. Now, Fidelity as an entity, we also support farming community. We fund their input acquisition. We fund, in some instances, direct production, both for crop and poultry. We also fund the logistics in terms of people who are involved in moving farm product from A to B. And sometimes we won't work with large agri firms in terms of supporting the other smaller farmers, creating an offtake arrangement, ad-grower scheme between the small holdings and then the large-scale enterprises. So for us as a bank, we are deeply involved in agri. We have a division in the bank that essentially support agri. Then apart from production, we also support, we have a lot of our customers in the region who are involved in export of agricultural commodities, cocoa, cashew, sesame seeds, and the rest of them. So we support them. I mean, in this region alone, we have not less than about 8 to 10 billion naira in that area alone, apart from those that are in poultry and other, actual agri-financing. So for us as Fidelity Bank, we lend specifically to our customers that are into agribusiness. We also key into the CBN intervention funds to support our farmers. We also provide equipment for them in form of equipment finance lists. Some of them have to buy certain equipment to support the processing activity of their business. That, to a large extent, we have also done. And just like you said, Fidelity is well known in the industry in terms of supporting SME, particularly in agribusiness. So we have this, and we have testimonies from a lot of our customers that are verifiable. Thank you very much.
I'm going to put you on the spot here. So I've heard all this, I know all these schemes already. I think they're well, maybe because I'm in the agricultural sector. But tell me, I'm a rice, I wouldn't go to rice. Rice is easily accessible. I grow tomatoes and I need to expand my business. What do I need to do to access finance? If I need to grow and scale up, maybe I have 1 hectare and I want to go to 2 hectares and I've been farming for 3 years. What are the real nitty-gritty? What are the things I need to be able to? Can you tell us some of those
Okay, for you to access financing from any conventional commercial bank, there
From
are basic
Fidelity,
things.
okay.
Yeah, from
Let's be
Fidelity.
specific.
Okay,
Okay.
specifically from Fidelity, first and foremost, there is what we call a risk assessment that we need to do. First and foremost, we need to know you. Who are you? We need to also find out what this business, how long have you been in it? Are you just a first timer? You just hear that, oh, Agric is moving and then you jump into it. So we need to know who you are. I mean, what people call character of the borrower, your capacity historically, and then going forward. So we want to know what have you done. We'll check your records. Hopefully you have. We'll go through it and say, okay, in the last 2-3 years, what have you done? So if we assess that and we see like a trajectory that is positive, and then we also be able to see ahead with you in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, that you also remain positive and growing, we'll consider you. Then also, it's important that I mention, because everybody will say, now, if you want to do agric, land is key. So the land that you have and the facility do you have on the land, do you have it registered with government? It's important because they will say, oh, go and bring a national stadium. Not necessarily. For us as Fidelity Bank, we want to be sure that the land and the facility you have on your land, are they registered with government? And I'm happy government people are also on board. I want to tell you that I have a lot of our customers who are qualified for loans in the bank, both agric and other sectors. The challenge they have is that they have all their documents with government for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. They've made all the relevant payment and their title documents are not out. It's part of the frustration that we are having. So specifically for Fidelity Bank, you are an agribusiness, want to know which area of the business are you into? How long have you been in this business? Do you have the relevant records that can give us the historical perspective of your business? And then what you are doing in terms of your land and not the facility, do you also have it registered so that at least we also have a comfort? And if you don't, we also have, other aspects of agencies of government that we also work with. Sometimes if you don't have your title registered, the NASA, Nike, all these other people provide some comfort for the bank, even when you don't have those titles registered. So with all of this, we are willing to deal with you and work with you. What we also do in Fidelity is part of the hand-holding scheme that we do is that if you are producing egg, we link you up with somebody who is an off-taker for egg, so that we don't just produce, we don't support you to produce for an open market. We want to do a structured lending such that when you produce, there is an off-taker who is linked up with you. So we are guarantee of demand, and we support you to ensure that you deliver in terms of productivity. So if you have this linkage well structured out, then it's a good deal in our hands to work with. So those are the basic requirements that we have. And once we have that in place, and more importantly also, like I said, we want to know that you also have your skin in the game. We want to be sure that you already have your own investment in it, so that if there's any challenge along the line, you are not going to abandon the farm and say, oh, it's Fidelity's money. But if you already have, let's say, 30% of the total requirement as your own equity in the business, we know that we are in it together, and then we'll work through it, even in difficult times, to get out of it. So that is what we consider in Fidelity in supporting agribusiness generally.
Thank you. Thank you very much for clarifying and giving us all those details. Thank you.
Thank you.
I keep seeing some messages on the chat box. If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A box, not the chat box, so we can get it. And I address it to who you're talking to specifically. So please, Q&A box, not the chat box. And keep the the CEO of JR Farms Africa. Rotimi, are you with me? Are you present?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Rotimi. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Rotimi, I'm aware, I know you very well, you're a friend. So you recently launched the Green Agribusiness Fund to help mitigate some of the challenges faced by SMEs to access finance. Can you tell us more about this fund? when the next application cycle is, and some key deciding factors to be considered when you want to access the funds.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on this panel. Yes, we launched the Green Agribusiness Fund (GAF) in July, but it's actually part of the goals, and one of them is to raise the next generation of agrarian leaders in Africa. And one of the ways we believe that this next generation of agrarian leaders can be raised instruments, which led us to GAF. So in 2018, at an FAO meeting, we had earlier made an open promise to launch this project as the first youth-to-youth investment, agri-investment company. So basically, it's set up as an equity. It's not a big fund yet. The first cohort is a $30,000 fund to invest in youth-led agribusinesses. So we're piloting with Nigeria and Rwanda, and then we already concluded the first application process. Unlike the banking system, it doesn't require you to have a collateral or equity funding or whatever. Basically, you just need to own an agribusiness that is viable. You must have been doing that agribusiness for a minimum of 1 year. And also you must be formal. When we mean formal, you must be registered, you must be paying your taxes, you must have all those things going on. So we're not looking for informal businesses. So yeah, basically that's what it is. The equity is going to stay in the business for 4 years. It's not a lifetime thing. And then one unique thing we're doing with the Green Agribusiness Fund is we're making it holistic, because we did a lot of studies about funding schemes in Africa and also in different parts of the world. And one of the gaps we saw is that most of this funding scheme only focus on funding. They just give money and then they wait for the returns. But in this case, we're making it holistic in the sense that we have partners we're working with, like the UN FAO, also AGRA, through Generation Africa. So we're working with various partners, and the focus is simply to give these beneficiaries other support that they need for their business to thrive. A lot of times we overrate the place of funding, but sometimes businesses fail not necessarily because of funding, but because of other things such as capacity. They lack capacity to manage particular, maybe a level of the business. Sometimes there's knowledge gap. So this project support is in line. We have training, capacity building, we have exposure, we have access to market. We're looking at how we can connect them to market and expand, create value for their product. So also advocacy, giving them exposure, taking them to conferences, taking them to fairs so that they can get exposure for their product, exposure for their business, and also more funding opportunity. So, like I said, it's the first youth-to-youth funding scheme for focus on agribusiness on this continent. And then with this project support, we believe that they will be successful. For example, now the first cohort, now yesterday we registered them for a formalization training with the HILO. HILO is one of our biggest partner in GR farms. So we registered them to learn more about business formalization, because this is also one of the critical things. We have a lot of young people in agribusiness who are not. Formalization is not about just registering your business and paying taxes alone, but also keeping your books, having contract with your staff. These are little things, because when you get all these things wrong, it also affects the sustainability and the scalability of your project. You see, so that's what the Green Agribusiness Fund is all about. We had the first cohort, induction on last Monday. With our partner, our lead partner on the project is UNFAO. And then the next cohort should be about July next year. But of course, updates would be. will be made known about it.
Thank you very much, Rotimi, for that. Thank you. So I want to